Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by our sponsor, ZiiDMS. ZiiDMS is built for dealerships ready to embrace change and unlock their full potential. Yep. As the industry evolves, outdated systems continue to hold dealers back with slow workflows, limited visibility, and operational inefficiencies. From multi-location management and streamlined workflows to real-time reporting and improved visibility across every department, ZDMS delivers a modern, scalable platform built to simplify operations, increase your efficiency, and support long-term dealership growth, allowing your team to spend less time managing software and more time driving results. Visit ZDMS.com, that's ZIIDMS.com today and schedule your demo.
Hey, everybody. Tonight, I've got the privilege of getting somebody from the other coast out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I've got a master technician of many times over, well-trained technician and guy of many, many years dealership experience. Michael Jones, welcome to my podcast.
Brian, how you doing tonight?
Man, I'm doing great. How are you?
Awesome. Wait, I'm doing fine. Hey, I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. You got a great show going on, and you've had some great guests in the past, and I hope to be able to put my name up there in the Wall of Fame with the rest of them.
Appreciate you and I chatted off air, I guess, yesterday or day before, and kind of had just to get to know each other, a little chat about philosophies and kind of your experience, so I can really fully understand where you're coming from and ask you the right sort of questions. But do you want to give a 15-second here's where I am and where I came from sort of thing? This is no job interview. If you just want to give a few highlights and make sure the audience knows kind of where you're coming from.
Sure, sure. Well, myself, like so many other people in the industry right now, are just a little worried about what the future may hold, and I think what it's going to take is everyone kind of taking an introspective look at themselves, professionally, and see where we can go from here. Because I think that the main key that we need to delve into is are we still in this to win it? I mean, we've got to reignite some passion, some fire in the bellies, and go after the public out there, and try to get them into the thrill of motorcycling. So, I'm a lifelong mechanic. Spent a couple of decades in the automotive industry, and then, like so many other people, I got crazy about motorcycles, and so my wife had worked at a dealership for many many years, and I finally convinced her, hey, let me give up this good paying job here in the automotive world and come twist wrenches on motorcycles. And of course, she really wasn't that inclined. Uh, but anyway, she couldn't stop me. And so since that time, I've spent about 10 years in power sports and motorcycle dealerships. And, I've really enjoyed it. And I just feel like so many other people that I'm a little worried about what the future may hold. And so I thought, hey, this would be a great forum to come on and maybe, give some of my experiences on what may be lacking in the industry today.
Okay. What are some telltale signs for you that would immediately mean passion disconnect, as we're kind of discussing that now?
Well, certainly it really starts out in the employee parking lot. If you're riding, either every day or a couple times a week, certainly that's going to continue you to be passionate about it because, I mean, it's like if you ever been to a firearm store, right? I mean, I'm not a big gun guy, but certainly I like to go to firearm stores. And the one thing that I've taken from that is that every employee there is strapped. Every employee there has a concealed carry permit. Every employee there is on a first name basis with the guy that runs the gun range, right? And every employee that you come across in those stores can tell you about every imaginable gun known to man and every accessory made to put on that gun, right? So then I got to thinking, well, why is it that motorcycle dealerships don't seem to be that way for the most part? And you and I touched on the employee burnout, And so, if you have associates at the dealership that are spending a lot of time, on social media, or you kind of get in this routine where, customers come in early in the day and you kind of get them rode up, and then instead of assisting the mechanics with the latest service bulletins or recalls or uh, you know, any type of pertinent information, you may just kind of find yourself cruising through like Reddit, or goofy bastard videos on YouTube, that kind of thing. Of course, that stuff can soak up a lot of time, right? And as a mechanic, you really need your other team members to be on all the time for you, because after all, you're trying to turn wrenches and repair bikes, and that's bringing in income for the dealership. And so if you uh, don't have a parts guy or a service advisor that can assist you, then you're losing money and the shop's losing money, right? Passion plays an important part in the profitability of the dealership, and there's a lot of things that you can do to kind of change things, like for instance, you don't want your mechanic, uncrating his next PDI, or you don't want him up at the parts counter perusing through illustrated parts lists trying to find a part. Let's bring that parts guy back to the mechanic's bench, with a tablet, or a laptop, and go over the parts right there, while you're right at the machine, because it doesn't make sense for the mechanic to have to partner with the parts guy and try to fumble his way through the parts list when really the parts guy should come back and right there with the mechanic, let the mechanic go over the machine.
I'll just go back a couple steps in what I was talking about, and hopefully that's where it dropped off. What I was saying when I realized that we were no longer connected on this session was, if a dealership who is, somebody at a dealership right now is listening to this, and they've got kind of a program like we've talked about. They've got we really don't. The rule of thumb here is we really don't take something older than, let's say, 10 years. What sort of obstacles can we help that dealership move? What are the first steps that they would probably go through to make a plan to begin doing that? What would be your first initial recommendations to start going back that direction?
Well, I mean, the thing is the 10-year and older rule it's really just a mindset. I mean, it's back in the day, you didn't want to go and work on a motorcycle that was, still carbureted and maybe had wiring issues, or they were still trying to figure out the fuel injection on the earlier bikes. And I just feel like in 2019, that's really not the case anymore. There's plenty of 2000 to 2009 machines that were very well engineered and have all types of diagnostic capability. All the service manuals are there online or either in a room, at your dealership. And it's just nowadays we don't have so much low hanging fruit that we can just turn that aside. And the other thing is that we need those people as well. We need those writers as well, because what we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to help people along through learning about motorcycles, working on motorcycles. We've really got to open up lines of dialogue to people out there, people who have motorcycles and people who don't have motorcycles. And I really feel like the way to do that is to bring them in and share information with them and say, hey, you got a bike, bring it on up here. We're gonna show you how we do things. We're gonna kind of take a peek behind the curtain, if you will. For so many years in the service department, you brought your bike in, the service advisor spoke with you, looked it over real good, and maybe made some recommendations and said, hey, appreciate you dropping it off. We'll have the mechanic look at it and we'll give you a call back, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think in today's world, we need to go beyond that and say, hey, we're going to let you in on all this. We're going to explain things to you, and whatever you're inquisitive about, we're more than happy to answer those questions. Not so much of hey, you dropped your bike off. We're going to take care of business and we'll give you a call how much the bill is going to be. But what we need to do now is engage those customers because, especially a lot of the younger people, they just never been around machines, period. Right? They just have time with dad, popping the hood on a car or riding a dirt bike as a child. And they're interested and curious about motorcycles, but they don't have anybody who can kind of bring them in and say, hey, these things are really cool. And, let us tell you how they work. Let us tell you, about the functionality of them. And, like kind of take on the whole pheromones of the motorcycle, the smells, the feel, everything that you get from it. We're going to explain it to you so you'll have less apprehension about it. Right.
It's it's funny having, I've got as of last spring, I had a new motorcycle. It's not new anymore, right? I drove it off the lot, and all that jazz. But I got a new KTM adventure bike. And when I got that thing, there was so much, of course, me as a guy that's in the business, but I still, got rabid about doing my research and learning everything and what the people on the forums or whatever. I mean, more like about how did the bike test and what sort of things are the upgrades I might want next to, all that sort of deal. But the area that I could really never touch was, I'm on this 1290 Super Adventure, and I'm not, in my own opinion, I'm not mechanically adept enough to do very much on it, So I initially, and I don't mind that's not my wheelhouse. I get that I'm going to bring it in for services to the guy that knows what he's doing. And a shop that I got it from, right from the get-go, they introduced me to I guess he's the service manager. I mean, he's the guy that turns the wrenches on my bike, but he's the one that's always taken the time to talk to me about what's next. And to me, that rings, true, because I always think about, interaction with me and one of my customers. I like to think about, here's the thing we're doing right now, and here's what you probably should be thinking about next. I think that's important to do that and to set the stage, if for no other reason, but mostly so that person knows you're obviously thinking about them going forward. And yeah, it's funny because I go in there and talk to them, and I'll have some goofball question. Hey, I heard this noise, or I heard this little warning popped up. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, if you remember, I told you I was going to set your indicator to come up on your mileage at this many miles. So you thought enough ahead to call us for this, and that's, to me, is where I couldn't expect a lot of the shops, even the ones that I worked at in that role. I know that I wasn't, and some of the guys I worked with were not that thoughtful. And again, that professional, as what I'm experiencing now. So I know that, I interact with stores in my area that exists in, but I think you're
Hmm.
right. I think it's still a bit of a wild west, in the back and in certain places, and allowed, because I think that's the area where I think you and I talked about it. The exercise of the God complex can happen, and you don't want to mess up the guy's area or his mind.
We need to know enough about the product offering at our dealerships to be able, with confidence, to explain things to the customers, whether it's sales or service handoff or coming back for service. And one thing I often thought of is that a lot of people just won't read their owner's manual. I mean, they'll leave it stuck under the seat, or it'll get filed away with personal belongings at home. So I thought to myself, hey, why don't we just download these owner's manuals that we have right off the OEM site and send it to them in a text, or via email, and let them download it on their phone. That if they're in a pinch somewhere out in a park, forget how to do something, they can scroll through that file on their phone and get answers. And I think that would be a way to show customers that you're professional and you're trying everything you can to help.
In the unit that I'm looking to you to be the God about, and make sure it
Mhm.
always does what it needs to do. But also that, like you just said, that you guys are also technologically savvy enough to know that I don't want to read something. If you're not going to send me a YouTube video of it, like you say, the link that I can grab my phone, the instant I think, oh man, what was the oil change interval? I didn't,
Yeah.
what was I supposed to do on this again? I think that's exactly right. I think that's definitely a direction to aspire to if dealerships are not doing that.
Yeah, I mean, because it's right there on their
Yeah.
phone. I mean, nobody reads anything in print anymore. They just don't. And so the key is to help the customers any way we can and let them know that we're proficient enough to know their machine and answer any questions that they have. Because let's face it, a lot of bikes nowadays are pretty high tech. I mean, the the communication systems and all the onboard on the onboard gizmos, right? We just got to stay up to date on that. And so I really feel like we could all, amp our professionalism up, and that's going to differentiate us from other dealers, because I mean, let's face it. I mean, we all kind of have the same metal. We're all pushing the same metal. We basically got the same colors. It's just we've got to have something different from the other dealership 20 or 30 miles away, right?
Mhm.
And I really feel that's where professional and and the customer can say, "Hey, you know what? These guys know what they're doing," and that gives me confidence.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep going back there because they stay abreast of the latest and greatest. And the other thing is with the training and staying abreast on what the OEMs are providing on a daily basis is, when you have that phone call or that guy that comes in and he's read something on the interwebs, right? You know, and instead of
Does
you
that still
scratching
happen?
your yeah, an alarming instead of scratching your head saying, "I'd like to get back with you," you might have already known about that.
Uh-huh.
Pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the last thing you want to happen is a customer asks you a question about something he's read on the internet and you get caught flat-footed.
How do you get somebody that's been disconnected in that way reconnected, right? I think you and I chatted about, maybe it's got something to do with, um, the ownership can be involved with that certainly and needs to be, but how, from your perspective, what's some of the things that you would want to maybe pull back into play or put in play to do that, get that passion reignited?
Well, there's a lot of things that you can do. I mean, first and foremost, dealership employees need to be riding motorcycles.
Mhm.
You know, if it's not every day or not an inclement, I understand that, but certainly, uh, you need to at least have at least 30 or 40% of your dealership staff riding. I mean, but the sad truth is not for almost 10 motorcycle dealerships. And never was there more than 10 or 15%. If there were 50 employees, there might be 5 or 6 guys that rode every day or every other day, right? And so, you know, that's going to have to change. Also, there's a lot of team building things that you can do to try to reinvigorate some passion into the team. Uh, you know, and get together. I mean, I know that dealerships put on bike nights and that kind of thing, but you want to get employees involved, right? I've got a little story. Years ago, I worked for a dealership that I was multi-branded and they had a local independent shop that they were sending their 10-year and older work to. And so, we sponsored a bike night in town, and it was halfway through the season. So let's just say every Wednesday night, after work we closed at 6. We would ask for employees to ride over there, just kind of show up,
Mhm.
hang out with some customers, and just right. And so, after the first couple 3 bike nights of the season, attendance kind of dwindled off, and it just seemed like it was hard to get employees to want to go over there, right? So, but my wife and I continued to go over there, and one night, we are just sitting there outside on some picnic tables, 4 or 5 of us from the dealership, uh, and all of a sudden I started hearing this rumbling, right? And I'm like, "What is that?" And so we're all kind of looking at one another, and next thing I know, I turn and look out on the street, and it's like here comes this herd of motorcycles, and it's they're all together. There's like 30 of them, and they're all wearing the same T-shirt. It says Chrome Mafia on the back, and I'm just like astounded, right? And so they all part together, they get off, they're glad handing one another. And, it's obvious, that there's a ringleader and, a couple of guys and they're glad handing people and, buying drinks. And it just seemed like they're the life of the party. And so I finally got around to asking somebody and they said, "Oh, that's the owner of that independent shop across town." And those are his mechanics and everybody else is just happy customers, right? It really just kind of blew my mind, because here is the dealership I work for that has 4 brands and they've been in business for 30 something years and we can barely scratch together 3 or 4 people from the dealership to show up at my night. And then, there's this independent shop that we're sending work to and it's just in some hole in the wall strip mall next to a huddle house that went out of business.
Hey, thank you so much for hanging out and listening to this throwback episode of the Dealership Fixit podcast. We pulled this one out because the lessons still hit hard even today. If you got something out of this one, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. We've got new episodes dropping, plus more throwbacks just like this one in between. There's a ton more on the channel, so go check it out. You might find a couple other episodes that'll help you out. See you on the next one.
Still guessing what to pay on a used bike? Still holding aged units that just won't move? It's time for a real system. MotoHunt's ultimate used inventory playbook shows how the best dealers are finding better inventory, pricing trades right, and turning used bikes faster with fewer mistakes and more margin. It's short, real, and free to download right now. Visit dealers.motohunt.com to grab your copy